Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriye. Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki. So continuing with our discussion on Krishna book, chapter 89, the super excellent power of Krishna. So today we are, can you all hear me?
Suppressed है प्रभुजी, वॉइस थोड़ा स्लो आ रही है.
बाकी लोगों को कैसे आ रहा है?
क्लियर है प्रभुजी?
क्लियर है प्रभुजी.
Clear. Then it's from my end.
So today we're going to discuss a new pastime of Krishna, another beautiful pastime. Once upon a time in Dwarka, a Brahman's wife gave birth to a child. Unfortunately, however, just after being born and touching the ground, the child immediately died. The Brahman father took the child and went directly to the palace of the king, who took the child's dead body. The Brahman was very upset because of the untimely death of the child in the presence of his young father and mother. Thus, his mind became very much disturbed. Formerly, when they were responsible kings, up to the time of Dwapar Yuga, when Lord Krishna was present, the king was liable to be blamed for the untimely death of a child in the presence of his parents. Can we even believe that? So, child were not supposed to die in presence of the parents. Similarly, such responsibility was there during the time of Lord Ramchandra. As we have explained in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the king was so responsible for the comforts of the citizens that he was to see that there was not even excessive heat or cold. Now the Brahman whose child had died, thinking there was no fault on his own part, immediately went to the palace door with the dead child in his arms and accused the king as follows. Amazing, this amazing setup according to Vedic scriptures. We can't even imagine all this now. And the Brahman petitioned as follows. The present king Ugrasen is envious of the Brahmans. The exact words used in this connection is Brahma Dvisha, that he is envious. One who is envious of the Vedas of a qualified Brahman or the Brahmin caste is called Brahma Dvish. One who's Dveshi or envious. So the king was accused of being Brahma Dvisha. He was also accused of being Shatdhi. Shatdhi means falsely intelligent. And this he went to tell Maharaj Ugrasen, the grandfather of Krishna. The executive head of a state must be very intelligent to see to the comforts of the citizens. But according to the Brahman, the king was not at all intelligent, although he was occupying the royal throne. Therefore, the Brahman also called him Lubdha, which means greedy. In other words, a king or an executive head of state should not occupy the exalted post of president or king if he is greedy and self-interested only. See, but it is natural that an executive head becomes self-interested when he is attached to material enjoyment. Therefore, another word used here is Vaishayatmana. So, king is not supposed to be greedy, self-interested, or envious of the Brahmins. Then he would be the right king. But these days, it's exactly the opposite. The Brahman also accused the king of being Kshatrabandhu, which refers to a person born in the family of Kshatriyas or the royal order, but lacking the qualifications of a royal personality. A king should protect Brahminical culture and should be very alert to the welfare of his citizens. He should not be greedy due to attachment to material enjoyment. If a person with no qualifications represents himself as a Kshatriya of the royal order, he is not called a Kshatriya but a Kshatrabandhu. Similarly, if a person is born of a Brahman father but has no Brahminical qualification, he is called Brahma Bandhu or Dvij Bandhu. This means that a Brahman or a Kshatriya is not accepted simply by birth. One has to qualify himself for the particular position. Only then he is accepted as a Brahman or a Kshatriya. So they are not accepted simply by birth. So they have to qualify, they have to have the qualities. That's why Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Guna Karma Vibhagasha. Guna and Karma also. Qualities and work. That defines if a person is Brahman or a Kshatriya or Vaishya or Shudra. Does a Brahman charge that his newly born baby was dead due to disqualifications of the king? The Brahman took it to be most unnatural and therefore he held the king responsible. We also find in Vedic history that if a Kshatriya king was irresponsible, sometimes a consulting board of Brahmins maintained by the monarchy would dethrone him. Considering all these points, it appears that the post of a monarch in Vedic civilization is a very responsible one. So it wasn't just to enjoy the taxes, enjoy the women of the kingdom, and just live happily. No, it's very, very responsible position. Otherwise, one takes a karma, lots and lots of karma. The Brahman therefore said, no one should offer respects or worship to a king whose only business is envy. Such a king spends his time either hunting and killing animals in the forest or killing citizens for criminal acts. He has no self-control and possesses bad character. If such a king is worshipped or honored by the citizens will never be happy. They will always remain poor, full of anxieties and aggrievement, and always unhappy. In modern politics, the post of monarch has been abolished, and the president is not held responsible for the comforts of the citizens. In this age of Kali, the executive head of a state somehow or other gets votes and is elected to an exalted post, but the condition of the citizens continues to be full of anxiety, distress, unhappiness, and dissatisfaction. And this is what is happening. And Prabhupada said in some place that most of the population is Shudras, Kalo Shudra Sambhava, and they all get together and elect another Shudra to lead them, to run the country. How can we expect any good coming from Shudras as a king? They're not supposed to be kings or the head of the state. The Brahman's second child also died at birth, and the third also. He had 9 children who all died at birth. And each time he came to the gate of the palace to accuse the king. When the Brahman came to accuse the king of Dwarka for the 9th time, Arjun happened to be present with Krishna. So all 8 times, nobody did anything. Even Krishna did not do anything. On hearing that a Brahman was accusing the king of not properly protecting him, Arjun became inquisitive and approached the Brahman. He said, "My dear Brahman, why do you say that there are no proper Kshatriyas to protect the citizens of your country? Is there not even someone who can pretend to be a Kshatriya, who can carry a bow and arrow, at least to make a show of protection? And with all the Yadav's army, such a huge warriors, wonderful, big warriors. Nobody even attempted to protect that Brahman. Do you think that all the royal personalities in this country simply engage in performing sacrifices with the Brahmins, but have no chivalrous power?" Thus Arjun indicated that Kshatriyas should not sit back comfortably on the pretext of performing Vedic rituals. but must rather be very chivalrous in protecting the citizens. Brahmins, being engaged in spiritual activities, are not expected to do anything which requires physical endeavor. Therefore, they need to be protected by the Kshatriyas so that they will not be disturbed in the execution of their higher occupational duties. So this is the Varnashram system that Brahmins are to be protected. And the Brahmins are supposed to be very simple, engaged in Vedic rituals. Patan, Patan, Yajan, Yajan, Dan, Pratigra. That's it. If the Brahmins feel unwanted separation from their wives and children, Arjun continued, and the Kshatriya kings do not take care of them, then such Kshatriyas are to be considered no more than stage players. In dramatic performances in the theater, an actor may play the part of a king, but no one expects any benefits from such a make-believe king. Similarly, if the king or the executive head of a state cannot give protection to the head of the social structure, he is considered merely a bluffer. Such executive heads simply live for their own livelihood while occupying exalted posts as chiefs of state. My lord, I promise that I shall give protection to your children, and if I am unable to do so, then I shall enter into blazing fire, so that the sinful contamination which has infected me will be counteracted. So now Arjun makes this decision. He takes this vow that if I am not able to protect your future children, then I will enter blazing fire and commit suicide. Now Krishna will act, because now Krishna's devotee will get into trouble. Upon hearing Arjun speak in this way, the Brahman replied, "My dear Arjun, Lord Balram is present, but he could not give protection to my children. Lord Krishna is also present, but he also could not give them protection. There are also many other heroes, such as Pradyumna and Anirudh, carrying bows and arrows, but they could not protect my children." The Brahman directly hinted that Arjun could not do that which was impossible for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He felt that Arjun was promising something beyond his power. The Brahman said, "I consider your promise to be like that of an inexperienced child. I cannot put my faith in your promise." So the Brahman could speak like that to Arjun, that you are talking. Your promise is like that of an inexperienced child. You're just a bacha. Arjun then understood that the Brahman had lost all faith in the Kshatriya kings. Therefore, to encourage him, Arjun spoke as if criticizing even his friend, Lord Krishna. While Lord Krishna and others were listening, he specifically attacked Krishna by saying, "My dear Brahman, I'm neither Sankarshan nor Krishna, nor any of Krishna's sons like Pradyumna or Anirudh. My name is Arjun, and I carry the bow known as Gandiv. You cannot insult me, for I have satisfied even Lord Shiva by my prowess. When we were both hunting in the forest, I had a fight with Lord Shiva, who appeared before me as a hunter. And when I satisfied him by my prowess, he gave me the weapon known as Pashupatastra. Do not doubt my chivalry. I shall bring back your sons, even if I have to fight with the death personified." When the Brahman was assured by Arjun in such exalted words, he was somehow or other convinced, and thus he returned home. So obviously, Prabhupada said, Arjun was speaking these big words, so trying to also tell to Krishna that no Kshatriyas live in, but obviously he was speaking based on the strength by Krishna, given to him by Krishna. When the Brahman's wife was to give birth to another child, the Brahman began to chant, "My dear Arjun, please come now and save my child." After hearing him, Arjun immediately prepared himself by touching sanctified water and uttering holy mantras to protect his bows and arrows from danger. He specifically took the arrow presented to him by Lord Shiva, and while going out, he remembered Lord Shiva and his great favor. In this way, he appeared in front of the maternity home, equipped with his bow known as Gandiv and with various other weapons. So Arjun went there with all his weapons. Arjun, who apparently had not left Dwarka because he had to fulfill his promise to the Brahman, was called at night when the Brahman's wife was to give birth to the child. While going to the maternity home to attend to the delivery case of the Brahman's wife, Arjun remembered Lord Shiva and not his friend Krishna. He thought that since Krishna could not give protection to the Brahman, it was better to take shelter of Lord Shiva. That was a mistake. This is another instance of how a person takes shelter of the demigods. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita. Kama stessa hirtagyana. A person who loses his intelligence because of greed and lust forgets the Supreme Personality of Godhead and takes shelter of the demigods. Of course, Arjun was not an ordinary living entity, but because of his friendly dealings with Krishna, he thought that Krishna was unable to give protection to the Brahman, and that he would do better to remember Lord Shiva. Later, it was proved that Arjuna was taking shelter of Lord Shiva instead of Krishna was not at all successful. Arjun, however, did his best by chanting different mantras, and he shot arrows up and down to guard the maternity home from all directions. So he made a fortress around the maternity home with his arrows. The Brahman's wife delivered a male child, and as usual, the child began to cry. But suddenly, within a few minutes, both the child and Arjuna's arrows disappeared into the sky. It appears that the Brahman's house was near Krishna's residence and that Lord Krishna was enjoying everything that was taking place, apparently in defiance of his authority. It was he who played the trick of taking away the Brahman's baby as well as the arrows, including the one given by Lord Shiva, of which Arjun was so proud of. Antavattu phalam tesha. Less intelligent men take shelter of the demigods due to bewilderment and are satisfied with the temporary benefits they want. So Krishna took away both the child and the arrows also. In the presence of Lord Krishna and others, the Brahman began to accuse Arjuna. Everyone see my foolishness. I put my faith in the words of Arjuna, who is impotent and who is expert only in false promises. How foolish I was to believe Arjuna. He promised to protect my child when even Pradyumna, Anirudh, Lord Balram, and Lord Krishna had failed. If such great personalities could not protect my child, then who can do so? I therefore condemn Arjuna for his false promise, and I also condemn his celebrated foe, Gandhi, and his impudence in declaring himself greater than Lord Balram, Lord Krishna, Pradyumna, and Anirudh. How can anyone save my child who has already been transferred to another planet? Due to sheer foolishness only, Arjun thought he could bring back my child from another planet. So we can only imagine Arjun's position. He's been called impotent and a person who's making false promises, everything. And he's Brahman is telling that I condemn his celebrated bow, Gandhi. Too much for Arjun to handle. Thus condemned by the Brahman, Arjun empowered himself with the mystic yoga perfection so that he could travel to any planet to find the Brahman's baby. It seems that Arjun had mastered the mystic yoga powers by which yogis can travel to any planet they desire. He first of all went to the planet known as Yamaloka, where the superintendent of death, Yamraj, lives. There he searched for the Brahman's baby, but was unable to find him. He then immediately went to the planet where the king of heaven, Indra, lives. When unable to find the baby there, He went to the planet of the fire demigod, then to the planet of Nirati demigod, and then to the moon planet. Then he went to Vayulok and Varuna Lok. When unable to find the baby on those planets, he went down to Rasatal planet, the lowest of the planetary system. After traveling to all these different planets, he finally went to Brahmaloka. Oh, he went to Brahmaloka also, where even great mystics, yogi cannot go. When by the grace of Lord Krishna, Arjun had that power and he went above the heavenly planets to Brahmaloka. When he was unable to find the baby, even after searching all possible planets, he then attempted to throw himself into a fire. Since he had promised the Brahman he would do so if unable to bring back his baby. So can we imagine the power of Arjun? How many powers he had? Of course, it was all by the mercy of Krishna, but still, he had all these powers. Lord Krishna, however, was very kind toward Arjun because Arjun was a most intimate friend of Lord. Lord Krishna persuaded Arjun not to enter the fire in disgrace. Krishna indicated that since Arjun was his friend, if he were to enter the fire in hopelessness, indirectly it would be a blemish on him. Lord Krishna therefore checked Arjuna, assuring him that he would find the baby. He told Arjun, do not foolishly commit suicide. Because it would, Krishna saying, it would bring bad name on him also if Arjun commits suicide. After addressing Arjun in this way, Lord Krishna called for his transcendental chariot. He mounted it along with Arjun and proceeded north. Lord Krishna, the all-powerful personality of Godhead, could have brought the child back without effort. But we should always remember that he was playing the part of a human being. As a human being has to endeavor to achieve certain results, so Lord Krishna, like an ordinary human being, or like his friend Arjun, left Dwarka to bring back the Brahman's baby. By appearing in human society and exhibiting his pastimes as a human being, Krishna definitely showed that there was not a single personality greater than he. God is great. That's a definition of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So at least within this material world, while he was present, Krishna proved that there was no greater personality within the universe. So he had performed wonderful, so many pastimes and killed so many demons, but he was still acting as a human being. Seated on his chariot with Arjun, Krishna proceeded north, crossing over many planetary systems. These are described in Srimad Bhagavatam as Saptadvipa. Dvipa means island. These planets are sometimes described in the Vedic literature as Dvipas or island. The planet in which we are living is called Jambudvip. Outer space is taken as a great ocean of air, and within that great ocean of air, there are many islands, which are the different planets. On each and every planet, there are oceans also. On some of the planets, the oceans are of salt water, and on some of them, there are oceans of milk. And on the others, there are oceans of liquor, and on others, there are oceans of ghee or oil. The different kinds of mountains also. Each and every planet has a different type of atmosphere. So Krishna passed over all these planets and reached the covering of the universe. So you can imagine. And as we have studied in Bhagavatam, that every covering, there are 8 coverings, and every covering is 10 times thicker than the previous one. This covering is described in Srimad Bhagavatam as great darkness. The material world as a whole is described as dark. In the open space, there is sunlight, and therefore it is illuminated. But in the covering, because of the absence of sunlight, it is naturally dark. When Krishna approached the covering layer of the universe, the 4 horses which are drawing his chariot, Shabya, Sugriva, Meghapushpak, and Balahak, all hesitated to enter the darkness because it was so dark. The horses hesitated. How can we go there? We cannot see anything. This hesitation is also a part of the pastimes of Lord Krishna because the horses of Krishna are not ordinary. It's not possible for ordinary horses to go all over the universe and then enter into its outer covering layers. As Krishna is transcendental, his chariot and his horses and everything about him are also transcendental, beyond the qualities of this material world. We should always remember that Krishna was playing the part of an ordinary human being, and his horses also, by the will of Krishna, played the parts of ordinary horses in hesitating to enter the darkness. So this is actually the backdrop I have. Krishna going in the chariot and reaching the covering of the universe. And it is dark. So what he did then? Krishna is known as Yogeshwar, as stated in the last portion of Bhagavad Gita. All mystic powers are under his control. In our experience, we can see many human beings who have yogic mystic power and also sometimes perform very wonderful acts. But Krishna is understood to be the master of all mystic power. Therefore, when he saw that his horses were hesitant to proceed into the darkness, he immediately released his disc, known as Sudarshan Chakra, which illuminated the sky 1,000 times brighter than sunlight. The darkness of the covering of universe is also creation of Krishna's, and the Sudarshan Chakra is Krishna's constant companion. Thus, he penetrated the darkness by keeping the Sudarshan Chakra before him. Srimad Bhagavatam states that the Sudarshan Chakra penetrated darkness just as an arrow released from Sharang bow of Lord Ramchandra penetrated the enemy army of Ravan. Su means very nice, and darshan means observation. By the grace of Lord Krishna's disc Sudarshan, everything can be seen very nicely and nothing can remain in darkness. Thus, Lord Krishna and Arjuna crossed over the great region of darkness, covering the material universes. So he sent Sudarshan Chakra before and he lit up the whole place 1,000 times more powerful than sun. Arjuna then saw the effulgence of light known as Brahmajyoti. So the chariot went through all the coverings of the universe, and then Arjuna saw Brahmajyoti outside the universe. The Brahmajyoti is situated outside the covering of the material universes, and because it cannot be seen with our present eyes, this Brahmajyoti is sometimes called Avyakta. Arjuna was given special eyes to see all this. We cannot see that. This spiritual effulgence is the ultimate destination of the impersonalists known as Vedantists. The Brahmajyoti is also described as Anantaparam, unlimited and unfathomed. When Lord Krishna and Arjuna reached this region of the Brahmajyoti, Arjuna could not tolerate the glaring effulgence and he closed his eyes. Lord Krishna and Arjuna reaching the Brahmajyoti region is described in the Harivansha. In that portion of the Vedic literature, Krishna informs Arjuna, my dear Arjuna, the glaring effulgence, the transcendental light you're seeing is my bodily rays. So this is Krishna's, the effulgence of Krishna's body is Brahmajyoti. O chief of the descendants of Bharat, this Brahmajyoti is I, myself. As a sun disk and the sunshine cannot be separated, Krishna and his bodily rays, the Brahmajyoti, cannot be separated. Thus, Krishna claims that the Brahmajyoti is he himself. Of course, that is not different from Krishna's bodily rays, but Brahmajyoti is not the Shyam Sundar Krishna that we see. This is clearly stated in Harivansha when Krishna says, Aham Saha. The Brahmjyoti is a combination of the minute particles known as the spiritual sparks or the living entities known as Chitta-Kana. The Vedic word So Aham or I am the Brahmjyoti can also be applied to the living entities who can also claim to belong to the Brahmjyoti. In the Harivansha, Krishna further explains, this Brahmjyoti is an expansion of my spiritual energy. So yeah, it's not material, it is spiritual. But it's a destination of all the impersonalists or Nirakaravatis. They only can go up to Brahmjyoti. Krishna told Arjuna, the Brahmjyoti is beyond the region of my external energy known as Maya Shakti. When one is situated within the material world, it's not possible to experience this Brahman effulgence. In other words, in the material world, this effulgence is not manifested, whereas in the spiritual world, it is manifested. This is the purport of the words avyakta in the Harivansha. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said, avyakta vyaktata sanatana. Both these energies are eternally manifested. After this, Lord Krishna and Arjuna entered a vast spiritual water. This spiritual water is called the Karan ocean, which means that this ocean is the origin of the creation of the material world. Karan is a cause, causal ocean or the Karan ocean. So this is the origin of the creation of the material world. This place is also known as Viraja, because it is free from the influence of the three qualities of the material world. Raja. Raja means passion or when we get involved in the material world. Vi means without. In the Mrityunjaya Tantra, a Vedic scripture, there is a vivid description of this Karan ocean or Viraja. It is stated there that the highest planetary system within the material world is Satyaloka or Brahmaloka, beyond which are Rudraloka and Mahavishnu Loka. Regarding this Mahavishnu Loka, it is stated in Brahma Samhita, Yah Karanarana Vajale Bhajati Sma Yoga Nidram Ananta Jagadanda Saroma Kupa. Lord Mahavishnu is lying in the Karan ocean. When he exhales, innumerable universes come into existence. And when he inhales, innumerable universes enter within him. In this way, the material creation is generated and again withdrawn. When Lord Krishna and Arjuna entered the water, it appeared that there was a strong hurricane of transcendental effulgence blowing, and the water of the Karan ocean was greatly agitated. By the grace of Lord Krishna, Arjuna had the unique experience of being able to see the very beautiful Karan ocean. So not every living entity can see that. Arjuna, we cannot even imagine the position of Arjuna and the mercy of Krishna on Arjuna. Their relationship that Krishna has personally taken him to this wonderful ride to Karan ocean. So further, accompanied by Krishna, Arjuna saw a large palace within the water. There were many thousands of pillars and columns made of valuable jewels, and the glaring effulgence of those columns was so beautiful that Arjuna was charmed by it. Within that palace, Arjuna and Krishna saw the gigantic form of Anantadeva, who is also known as Shesha. Lord Anantadeva or Sheshanag was in the form of a great serpent with thousands of hoods, each one decorated with valuable effulgent jewels, beautifully dazzling. Each of Anandadeva's hoods had two eyes, which appeared very fearful. His body was as white as the mountain top of Kailash, which is always covered with snow. His necks were bluish, as were his tongues. Thus Arjuna saw the Sheshanag form, and he also saw that on the very soft white body of Sheshanag, Lord Mahavishnu was lying very comfortably. He appeared all-pervading and very powerful, and Arjuna could understand that the Supreme Personality of Godhead in that form is known as Purushottama. He is known as Purushottam, the supreme or best personality of Godhead, because from this form emanates within the material world another form of Vishnu known as Garbhodaksha Vishnu. The Mahavishnu form of the Lord is also called Purushottam because he is beyond the material world. Purush Uttam. Tamam means darkness and Ut means above or transcendental. Therefore, Uttam means above the darkest region of the material world. Arjun saw that the bodily color of Purushottam Mahavishnu was as dark as a new cloud in the rainy season. He was dressed in very nice yellow clothing. His face was beautifully smiling and his eyes, which were like lotus petals, were very attractive. Lord Mahavishnu's helmet was bedecked with valuable jewels and his beautiful earrings enhanced the beauty of the curling hair on his head. Lord Mahavishnu had 8 arms, all very long, reaching to his knees. His neck was decorated with the Kaustubh jewel, and his chest was marked with the symbol of Srivatsa, which means the resting place of the goddess of fortune. The Lord wore a garland of lotus flowers down to his knees. This long garland is known as Vajayanti garland. The Lord was wearing all these beautiful jewels and he was lying on Sheshnag. The Lord was attended by his personal associates, Nanda and Sunanda, and the personified Sudarshan disk was also standing by him. As stated in the Vedas, the Lord has innumerable energies and they also stood there in the personified forms. The most important among them were as follows. Pushti, the energy for nourishment. Shri, the energy of beauty. Kirti, the energy of reputation. And Aja, the energy of material creation. All these energies are invested in the administrators of the material world, namely Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and Lord Vishnu. And this Lord Vishnu here means is Kshirodaksha Vishnu. And also in Indra, the king of the heavenly planets, Chandra, Varuna, and the sun god. In other words, all these demigods being empowered by the Lord with certain energies engage in the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Mahavishnu feature is an expansion of Krishna's body. The Brahma Samhita confirms that Mahavishnu is a portion of a plenary expansion of Krishna. All such expansions are non-different from the personality of Godhead. But since Krishna appeared within this material world to manifest his pastimes as a human being, he and Arjun immediately offered their respects to Lord Mahavishnu by bowing down before him. Krishna is bowing down before Mahavishnu. It is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam that Lord Krishna offered respects to Mahavishnu. This means that Krishna offered obeisances unto none other than himself, because Lord Mahavishnu is not different from Krishna himself. This offering of obeisances by Krishna to Mahavishnu is not, however, the form of worship known as Ahangra Upasana, which is sometimes recommended for persons trying to elevate themselves to the spiritual world by performing the sacrifice of knowledge. So Ahangra Upasana means worshipping himself. So Krishna, although Mahavishnu is expansion of him, but this is not Krishna is worshipping himself. Such persons are also mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, Jnana Yajnana Chapi. Okay, Prabhupada further says, although there was no necessity for Krishna to offer obeisances, because he is a master teacher, he taught Arjuna just how respect should be offered to Lord Mahavishnu. Arjuna, however, became very much afraid upon seeing the gigantic form of everything distinct from the material experience. Seeing Krishna offering obeisances to Lord Mahavishnu, he immediately followed him and then stood before the Lord with folded hands. After this, the gigantic form of Mahavishnu, greatly pleased, smiled pleasingly and spoke as follows. Actually, same feeling we get when we go to South India to all these they're wonderful temples, but they're the form of Mahavishnu, Lord Vishnu lying down is huge. Their temples, we had to go through 3 doors to see the full body of Mahavishnu, of the Lord. One door just shows his face, lotus face. Second door, his navel part, and third door is lotus feet. He's so huge. My dear Krishna and Arjun, so Lord Mahavishnu is speaking. My dear Krishna and Arjun, I was very eager to see you both. And therefore, I arranged to take away the babies of the Brahman and keep them here. I've been expecting to see you both at this palace. You have appeared in the material world as my incarnations in order to minimize the force of the demonic persons who burden the world. Now, after killing all these unwanted demons, you will please come back to me. The 2 of you are incarnations of the great sage Narayana. Although you are both complete in yourselves to protect the devotees and to annihilate the demons, and especially to establish religious principles in the world, so that peace and tranquility may continue, you are teaching the basic principles of factual religion so that people of the world may follow you and thereby be peaceful and prosperous. Of course, Mahavishnu says that you are my incarnations, but we understand he is expansion of Krishna, plenary portion of Krishna. Lord Krishna and Arjun then offered their obeisances to Lord Mahavishnu in taking back the Brahman children. They returned to Dwarka via the same route by which they had entered the spiritual world. All the children of the Brahman had duly grown up. After returning to Dwarka, Lord Krishna and Arjun delivered to the Brahman all of his sons. Arjun, however, was struck with great wonder after visiting the transcendental world by the grace of Lord Krishna. And by the grace of Krishna, he could understand that whatever opulence there may be within this material world is only an emanation from him. Any opulent position a person may have within this material world is due to Krishna's mercy. One should therefore always be in Krishna consciousness, in complete gratefulness to Lord Krishna, because whatever one may possess is all bestowed by him only. Arjuna's wonderful experience due to the mercy of Krishna is one of the many thousands of pastimes performed by Lord Krishna during his stay in this material world. They were all unique and have no parallel in the history of the world. All these pastimes prove fully that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yet while present within this material world, he played just like an ordinary man with many worldly duties. He played the part of an ideal householder possessing more than 16,000 wives, 16,000 palaces, and 160,000 children. And in that role, he performed many sacrifices just to teach the royal order how to live in the material world for the welfare of humanity. As the ideal Supreme Personality, he fulfilled the desires of everyone, from the Brahman, the highest persons in human society, down to the ordinary living entities, including the lowest of men. Just as King Indra is in charge of distributing rain all over the world to satisfy everyone in due course, so Lord Krishna satisfies everyone by pouring down his causeless mercy. His mission was to give protection to the devotees and to kill the demoniac kings. Therefore, he killed many hundreds and thousands of demons. Some of them he killed personally, and some were killed by Arjuna, who was deputed by Krishna. In this way, he established many pious kings, such as Yudhishthira, at the helm of world affairs. Thus, by his divine arrangement, he created the good government of King Yudhishthira, and there ensued peace and tranquility. So thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport to the 89th chapter of Krishna, the super excellent power of Krishna. So we'll stop here. We'll start the next chapter tomorrow. Last chapter of 10th canto. It's amazing. So we'll stop this. See anybody has any questions or comments?
Ultimate, Prabhuji. Beautiful. Beautiful. Fast right.
Chala, so you all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.